Hey everyone, Hannah here, Women's Studies 440. So today this is the second week we've been covering lit reviews. And so the first video that I shared with you all was not me, obviously, and the speaker in that video basically showed you all how to use searchable databases, but especially Google Scholar to find literature that is related to the topic that you're covering for this semester. So if you recall, my topic was domestic violence. So that would be the type of things I'd be searching for in my database, just in case you're a little bit behind in our weekly assignments. All right, so this week you should be focusing more on actually writing your lit review. So let me get up on my little soapbox real quick and say that one of the things I found really frustrating when I was an undergrad and when I was in my master's program was literature review and how professors taught me how to write a literature review. So basically, I'm not even going to give you an example of the way I was taught initially how to write a literature review because it's so wrong in my humble opinion. But basically what my professors would have me do is they'd have me read a certain number of scholarly journal articles on a topic, and then I would summarize each article in 1 to 2 paragraphs, and then I would just basically copy and paste all of those summaries of all of those different articles, maybe 5 or 10 articles, into one Word document, and that would be my quote unquote literature review. But if you've ever read a scholarly journal article or a thesis or a dissertation, you know that that's not what literature reviews look like in publishable documents. So there's a disconnect, right? Where the way you're being taught to write literature reviews isn't really a practical way. So for your final Women's Studies 440 paper, I want your literature to review to be more concise, written in a more practical way, in a way that is actually publishable for the purpose of scholarly journal articles or theses or dissertations, because my hope is that in the future, whether you go to grad school or you decide to go the professional route, you'll find your literature review skill sets you learn in this class useful. All right, so the example I'm going to give for you all as far as how I want to see you write your literature review in a more concise way is actually my dissertation, because I believe that as instructors, we should never ask our students to do anything that we're not willing to do ourselves. So I like to use my own real world personal examples when possible. So this is a chapter of my dissertation where I'm developing a theory that I created myself called place-based exceptionalism. Now, that's not really important. I'm just letting you know what the overarching theme is for this chapter. I guess let me backtrack just for a second. The reason why I'm choosing to share a dissertation chapter as my example is because my dissertation chapters are a little bit shorter than the types of papers I have written in my graduate seminars. Those end of semester final graduate seminar papers tend to be a little longer than my dissertation chapters. And so the dissertation chapter I'm sharing is about the same length that your final paper should be for this class. So that's why I think it's a little bit more applicable model for you all. All right. So for those of you who have never written a final paper in any of your classes that follows a social science scholarly journal article, you should start with a intro, which is this page right here. And so this intro for your final Women's Studies 440 paper should be 1 page at most, like mine is. So it's 2 paragraphs. I would say, since this class isn't writing intensive, you could potentially get away with an even shorter intro that's only 1 paragraph, just depending on your writing style and how concisely you can say what you need to say in each paragraph. But again, you don't want it to be longer than that. And then this heading right here is the first subsection of my literature review. So this subsection is about college students' coping strategies. And you can see here that I am summarizing in this paragraph what all of these scholars are saying about college students coping strategies. So I'm synthesizing what existing literature tells us about college students coping strategies. I'm not summarizing everything these authors said and then ending the paragraph, followed by another paragraph summarizing everything these authors say. Rather, I'm synthesizing what all of these different existing articles say about the topic in one paragraph. All right. The next subsection of my literature review is community members' perceptions of safety. So this is criminology literature more broadly. And again, you see where I'm using different citations throughout this little subsection that's a few paragraphs long. And I'm not summarizing each scholarly article and moving on, right? Like I'm synthesizing all this criminological literature and talking about it all together, right? Not in sort of siloed ways. And so that's what I want to see your literature review look like for the purpose of your final Women's Studies 440 paper. Also note, I have two subsections in my literature review. I think for the length your final paper needs to be in our class, that's perfectly acceptable. Sorry, it's a little late at night. If you wanted to add a third subsection in your literature review because you have a third topic that's really important to whatever it is you're writing your paper on, that's fine. But try to stick to 2 or 3 subsections in your literature review. Have each of those subsections be anywhere from 1 to 3 paragraphs in length. You don't want your literature review to take up too much space because this class is a research methods class. So you really want to hone in on your findings section, right? Now, because this is a chapter in my dissertation, I actually don't have a method section in this chapter, but the next thing that you would want to include is your method section. I don't have a method section in this chapter because I have an entire chapter on my methodology in my dissertation. But typically, that's the next thing you'll see in a scholarly paper after the literature review. In the method section, you simply write out exactly what you did. So you'll write about the process of finding bills, finding letters to the editor and op-eds, finding testimony, and compiling all of those different documents into your database. You'll also write about how you analyze your data, what your unit of analysis is, your rationale for your unit of analysis. You'll also include some of the codes some of the themes you coded for. You will also include your research questions at the end of your methods section. And then you get to the meat and potatoes of your final paper, which is the findings section, right? I always think, and I've been trained by other faculty members to always try and include 3 different subsections in your findings section. So here in my findings section, my first subsection is geographic exceptionalism. And you can see these little sections here where things are not double spaced. That's actual data. So that's qualitative interview data that I collected for the purpose of my dissertation. And you can see how it's sprinkled in throughout, but there's a lot of data, right? Like you should be showing the reader what it is your data is saying, right? Rather than telling us, you just want to show it by including actual pieces of data. So for me, in my dissertation, that data is interview data. But for you all, you'll be using the documents and the content of those documents as your data, right? And then the next subsection in my findings section is comparing to other schools. So that's my second subsection in my findings. And then the third section, and again, I'm scrolling through so you can get a feel for how often I include the data. And the third subsection in my findings is our school is not so great, but ... Again, just scrolling so you can see how things are kind of included or organized in my paper. And then you end with the conclusion. This is a rather long conclusion, I'll say. Typically, your conclusion, at least for the purpose of your final Women's Studies 440 paper, should be about the same length as your intro. So at least a paragraph, like a good meaty paragraph, but potentially 2 or 3 paragraphs in length. And essentially, in your conclusion, you're just summarizing all of your findings and explaining again how your project contributes to the field. And that's basically all I have for your literature review. This is also sort of an overview, a summary, if you will, of what your overall final paper should look like. I hope everyone is enjoying your week. Have a good one, guys.